well, says, do you get any sleep when you, I says, yeah, I get a little sleep. I said, very little. I said, but I'm doing something now. I'm making a change over. He said, well, I said, as long as you can handle yourself and don't fall over something and get hurt or some kind of a way, he said, but you're doing an excellent job is catching on. He said, you know the signals and you know where to stand and to keep from getting run over by trains and all this kind of stuff, and you work safe. And as long as you do that, says, that's fine. He says, yeah, says, I don't mind him catching you a nap while we're going down the hill somewhere or something like that. So he did, and but anyway, I worked there until I worked, oh shoot, well, that's where I got over the derail, so to speak. I got my 60 days in, and when I got the 60 days in and they told me that I was hired, well then that's when I went back and wrote my letter of resignation to the job that I was working on over there, Western Wayne Inspection Bureau. And shoot, those guys there that I had been working for me, they said, you mean you're gonna leave? We don't know who we'll get. I said, well, I've got to move further. I said, I came here trying to better my condition. And I said, of course, I'm leaving for more money. I said, man, they're not paying me the money that I would like to make. So I did. I went on and moved. And shoot, about 3 or 4 months later, I went over there and they had discontinued their job. They had discontinued Western Wayne Inspection Bureau.
Wow. Dodged that one.
Yeah, and I saw one of the guys downtown or someplace there. And he said, well, how did it come out with you as a switchman? And I said, well, I said, I'm still a switchman. I said, pretty soon, I said, I think I'm going to get to be a trainman. I said, because the main chief, he told me that I would be able to change over. Of course, I'll have to give up my seniority as a switchman. I said, well, I don't mind doing that because I'll get into the train department, you know, running from station to station, you know. And so, shoot, we talked a little while. But anyway, that's what happened. Later on there, about a year later, I had to give up that whole year of seniority as a switchman and go to work as a trainman. But that's what I gladly did that because I knew I could make more money as a trainman than I could as a, and then that's when I got into the training department. That's when I started studying, trying to get to be a conductor. I said, shoot, I don't want to stand here and beat the rail and walk them down the track all my whole career. So I want to kind of move forward a little bit if I can. And I did. I was able to do that. I took the class. The first time I failed it, and the second time I passed it. Shoot, of course, that was a continuous thing of the railroad. You had to continue to work your job, but then there was general orders coming in from the superintendent's office all the time, and those orders superseded any other order that you might have. You could be issued train order from the dispatch. You could be issued train orders. And if in the provision of those train orders, anything collaborated with that general order, well, you had to just discontinue not to do that, but you had to do according to what the general order said to do, because the general order superseded any other order, including the orders in the rule book. And we were working for 2 different railroads. We were working for the Santa Fe and for the Cotton Belt and the SP Railroad, the SP and the Cotton Belt. Of course, they had separate rule books, but they worked in together. And so we had to know both rule books and abide by the rules, but mainly we had to look forward to the general order. Mm-hmm. And of course, that was no big thing, but you just had to remember if you were working on the Cotton Belt side, well then you'd be governed by the track rule of the Cotton Belt. Mm-hmm. And if you was on Southern Pacific tracks doing work. Well, then you had to work in accordance with the SP, but the general order superseded either one of those.
Okay. Yeah.
The work that you were doing. But running trains, though, we'd leave Commerce here. This is called dark territory, which was train order territory. That later changed the block system. I mean, to the block system in Commerce there. It was you had to work out of blocks instead of working according with train order in a dark territory. You had a certain block that you would be in, and you were governed by the rules that applied in that particular block. So that brought in a lot of caution. You had to be cautious of where you were and aware of where you were at all times, because anytime you got out of your block, you were supposed to get hit, because that block, when they come up with block system, with the with whatever block, you were in the Commerce block, or you could be in the Greenville block, so on. They had signs there, and of course you'd know which rules to convert to in order to move in that particular section portion of track. Of course, all the track was interconnected together, but there was just certain points that you could go to, that you had to work in, and like kind of like in yard limits. Now, we were working in Commerce yard. Well, now you have yard rules that govern movements in the yard. As to you can move over 20 miles an hour in the yard, and in certain section of the yard you had to move 10 miles an hour or less. But once you became, the yard limit sign would apply at whatever yard that you move into. You had to reduce your speed from track speed to yard speed, which was 20 miles an hour, unless you come up on a sign somewhere that said that the speed was restricted to 10. Or if you had an order that you were carrying that said the speed was in from mile pole 2 to mile pole 3, for instance, was 5 miles an hour, well, then you had to reduce it to 5 miles an hour until the whole rear of your train came over the point where the 5 miles an hour did no longer apply. Well, then that's when you could tell the engineer that he could resume speed, track speed.
Do you think that your experiences with all of these various complex systems, and as a switch operator, as a conductor, and all of the various rules that you had to negotiate, and the levels of rules that might supersede others, and the complexity of the territories, do you think that those experiences might have fed into your ability to be such an effective community organizer when in negotiating the city council and all of this?
Yes, I think what that did, what things like that does to a person, it make them. They have a tendency to be neutral. In other words, you don't just sit on one particular concrete thing. You have to apply yourself and move according to the instructions that apply to whatever you're doing. Yeah, that's what the way I would kind of explain that. And as far as the city commissioners was concerned, well, yeah, I would study on some of that stuff as to the purpose of a commissioner and what he was actually doing. Of course, now that is something that I think that the Air Force taught me back to